At first, when you hear the question of why databases, you might think, why should I learn about databases? If this is your question, then you have likely answered it already. The answer is, it pays very well and leads to a great career. Going deeper into the question is, why do companies need databases so much that they offer you such a career? The simple answer is, there is a high business need for databases, and SQL is a very powerful and affordable enterprise database management system. What does that mean exactly? In this chapter, we will talk about the business needs for databases and how SQL Server is a complete system used to manage these databases. It's often best to start a concept off with an understandable example. Let's take the movie industry for our first example and how box office returns are totaled. We're going to go back to the days before SQL Server. I was a young boy back in April 1977 when the movie Star Wars hit the silver screen. Within a week, the news agencies were talking about what a hit this movie appears to be. There were no numbers yet, but evidence was mounting that things were going good. Mostly, the news cameras would drive by the theaters and see long lines of people waiting to see Star Wars. One news agency called the 30 theaters in the USA that showed Star Wars on its opening night to ask about the sales. The theater owners in 29 of the 30 theaters said it was a record weekend for them. That's a pretty good statistic. And we are starting to get some numbers now, but how about the weekend box office totals nationwide or even worldwide? Well, after months of accounting, the first week and the first month totals were tallied, and this movie would become the biggest hit of all time. It took a team of accountants with ledgers to eventually turn out these totals. Based on the hit of the movie and the memorable characters, a decision was made to start making toys and action figures based on the movie, which would be sure to be the hottest selling set of toys to hit the market. The only problem was the months it took to design, approve, and test these toys meant they would be out in March of 1978. Had that decision been made earlier, there would have been millions of dollars worth of toy sales in 1977. Contrast this example to the release of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone back in 2001. On the Monday morning, after the release weekend, the news agencies said this movie made $90 million in the opening weekend. But the weekend ended just a few hours ago. So how did this total come so fast? Did a team of accountants work in the early hours of the morning to make this happen? All of these sales rolled up into a database, and with one single query, a grand total was instantly available. What hasn't changed between 1977 and now is the fact that we have been storing information, collecting information. Maybe it was in papers or files. In the last 20 years, what has improved greatly is we can get the information we need instantly from databases. If you know how to talk with SQL and get the information you want, then it will be your best business friend. Like all the databases that came before it, SQL Server does collect information. But the real key is it's a database management system, which means you can get just the information you want out very quickly. Let's get one more example of how handy database management systems like SQL Server are. For example, if you ran a test promotion in Florida that you were thinking about running around the world, you would want to know how well the promotion affected sales. In this case, you want to compare the sales gains in Florida to all other areas. There may be millions of sales in Florida and billions of sales everywhere else. That is far too much data for a human ledger. You need a system that can both collect and pull out this information for you. SQL Server is a database management system, DBMS, that will show you the information you need. Remember the example of Harry Potter making $90 million in the opening weekend? Was that $90 million stored in the database? Actually, there were many records of people paying mostly between $5 and $7, but nowhere is there a record of $90 million. If you added the numbers together, then you would see this $90 million total. So the $90 million was not really the stored data, but the answer to a question about the stored data. This gets us to the definitions of data and information. Data is what's being stored in a database, such as raw numbers, text, or images. Information is what we look at and often build into business reports. In other words, information is data that is processed or structured in such a way as to have true value to the user. It's useful for businesses to have the right information quickly. And SQL is a true master at turning data into information. Quick access to accurate data is becoming more important to businesses each year. The CEO and board of directors needs to know how things are going. They will not likely be taking any programming classes and therefore need people to help them collect the data and get the right information. If you know how SQL Server works, then there are many businesses that need your services. You may be creating a new report quickly for the next meeting, called an ad hoc report. If you are mostly creating ad hoc reports, you are a SQL analyst. You may be asked to develop a report that will be run once a month, every month. If you are creating reusable queries or designing the database, then you are doing SQL development. Perhaps you will never create a report, but are told to monitor the system and make sure there are safe backups. If you are overseeing an existing deployment, then they will likely call you a database administrator, or DBA. In a database, you will hear the term table very frequently. The first time I heard it, I kept imagining the dinner table at home. A table looks a lot like a spreadsheet. In fact, the figure below shows the exact same data in a SQL table and an Excel spreadsheet. A table is a collection of columns and rows of data. Have you ever seen an Excel workbook with more than one spreadsheet in it? Most databases have many tables, and those tables often relate to each other. In this figure, we see Alex Adams is the first record from the employee table. The employee table shows us Alex works in location ID 1. We can see from the first record in the location table that location ID 1 is Seattle. You might be thinking by now SQL is a very cool and powerful application. But what happens to applications like Excel when you log off the computer? Applications close and stop running when you log off. Most SQL servers need to run 24 hours per day. If your SQL server shut down when you logged off at the end of your workday, then this would be a problem. We need an application that will work as long as the computer is running, even if you're logged out. An application that runs regardless of who is logged in is called a service. SQL Server is a service. Okay, services are very impressive, but have one drawback. They run invisibly, and you can't see them. It's hard to work on something that you can't see. The creator of a service often provides a special way to interact with the service. We need an application that could talk to the SQL Server service and illustrate what is happening. When you install SQL Server, you will install more than just the service. You will need to install an application to manage the service. In the case of Microsoft SQL Server, we have an application called Management Studio. When you close Management Studio, the SQL Server service remains running. Whenever you open the Management Studio application, you can manage the running SQL Server service. If the SQL Server service is not running when you open Management Studio, you will get an error. On our SQL Server machine, it is likely that the SQL Server service is one of many Windows services. We can take a moment learning how to view all of the invisible services that are running on our computer. Press the keyboard button with the Windows symbol plus the letter R to open up the Run dialog box. Type the word services.msc in this dialog box to open the services window. When the services window opens, we can see there's a long list of services sorted in alphabetical order. The SQL Server service is seen right here.